Another day is here, and you're ready for it. What to wear? Check. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Check. Planning for what's next and how to save for it? That's where Bank of America can help. For your financial to-dos, Bank of America has experts ready to help get you closer to your goals. Get started at one of our local financial centers or 24/7 in our mobile banking app. Find a location near you at bankofamerica.com/talktous. What would you like the power to do? Mobile banking requires downloading the app and is only available for select devices. Message and data rates may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
I am good, and I am also reliably informed that this is being recorded.
Yes. Now, you, of course, recently had a birthday, so happy birthday to you. But as I said to Guy when he had his birthday, don't feel special. We all have birthdays every single year. Karl Matchett, it is Thursday today, which means that yesterday was Wednesday and the day before was Tuesday. And on those days, there were Champions League semi-final second legs. So let's start on Tuesday. PSG 0, Borussia Dortmund 1, giving us an aggregate score of PSG 0, Borussia Dortmund 2. Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final, Karl. Now, I went through... Well, first of all, let's start with your reactions to Dortmund overcoming PSG and reaching a European Cup final.
Magnificent on the part of Dortmund. I mean, we spoke sometimes about Bayern Munich and the fact that they could be better in Europe this year than they have been domestically. Well, I mean, multiply that by 17 for Dortmund this year, because they've been inconsistent. They've been downright not impressive at times, but somehow they found a way. They were really the outliers of the semi-finals, not just obviously with the financial power and what they were trying to achieve in the league and so on and so forth, but I thought also in their approach, their tactical approach, they were completely egoless and the only one of the four teams who would be, I think, at this stage. And it really, really played to their advantage. They were obviously very selfless and hardworking and really bought into the approach. It really obviously helped them that they had something to cling on to as well. But I think that the fact that they were willing to just, not worry about being a side who has a particular style they have to stick with and just do what the occasion demanded is what really got them there.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because Edin Terzic, the manager, he has come in for a lot of criticism. Obviously, they should have won the Bundesliga title last year and bottled it on the final day in ridiculous fashion. And there was a lot of talk up until about a month ago that Dortmund would look to move on from him this summer because it's been a disappointing league campaign. And they may still get a Champions League. Well, they probably will get a Champions League spot because it looks like the Bundesliga will get a fifth one. But fifth in the Bundesliga is still a very poor outcome for Borussia Dortmund. But when you look at what they've done in the Champions League, I mean, nobody gave them much hope of getting out of the group. PSG, Milan, Newcastle. It's a really tough group. And they didn't just get out of it, they topped that group. And then you get into the round of 16. They get PSV. They were favoured over PSV. And they take care of them. Then they draw Atleti. And nobody gave them much hope. And yet they overcame Atleti. And then they draw PSG. Nobody gives them much hope or any hope, really. And they've overcome them. They did have to ride their luck. But at the same time, you'd be really hard-pressed to look at this European, or this Champions League campaign and not say they fully deserve their place in the final.
Yeah, agree. Look, I think they've taken a really different approach in different rounds. I think the last 16 when they were drawn with PSV was obviously it felt quite a well matched one at the time, in like that they were both fairly amongst the outsiders, and so each of them really felt that they had a chance because they were drawn against the other one, if you know what I mean. And I think Dortmund pretty much played that one well. They maybe didn't play well, but I mean they played the occasion well and didn't like go all out to absolutely hammer them in the first leg or anything like that. Against Atletico Madrid, though, it was different. They accepted that they were going to be not as good as them in some areas, but also knew they'd be better than Atletico in certain other areas, and they attacked those areas, and they really did make the most of it on home soil with Atletico's terrible away, not just the results of the away record, but what they've really struggled with teams attacking them in the manner that they did, and they just kept attacking, and even when they were clear, they kept attacking, which made the game really entertaining because Atleti then came back into it, but they just kept going in the same way. And that's what I mean by they've not really had a style that they've been wedded to, and that's been of enormous benefit to them. Whether that's something which would hinder them domestically or not is kind of irrelevant in this case because they've not been playing, obviously, teams from the same nation as them, and it's a complete different competition anyway. It's allowed them to be probably a little bit more free and sort of ignore the fact that they're underperforming in one competition because they've been able to go further than was expected of them in another. So I think it's great success this run, obviously. Whether or not it's because Borussia Dortmund are only allowed to reach Champions League final when the final is played at Wembley, we have to wait and see next time.
Yeah, it's a funny thing with Dortmund because, like I said, there's just no way you can look at their campaign and say they don't fully deserve to be here. But at the same time, you go back and you look at every season of the Champions League since the changeover of the format and the rebranding. And there's very few teams that have had as poor a domestic campaign as they have and yet gotten to a Champions League final. You'd really be looking at Liverpool in 2005, the two times Chelsea won it, and Spurs in 2019. And that's kind of it. Everyone else has been, a top 3 team in their domestic league, a top 4 team at worst in their domestic league. And yet, like, you look at those Chelsea teams, they were hugely expensive teams, like hugely expensive. And they had like great players in them. Like that first Chelsea team had Petr Cech, it had Ashley Cole, Frank Lampard, Didier Drogba. He didn't play in the final, but obviously John Terry played the rest of the tournament. That Liverpool team had that great defensive unit with Carragher and Hippie at the heart of it, Hamann and Alonso in midfield, and it had Steven Gerrard. Chelsea, the last time, wasn't a great team. I don't think there was any great players in it, but it was a very expensively assembled team. And that Spurs team, that's, the best Spurs team of the Premier League era. And the only reason they finished as poorly in the league is because all of their focus went on the Champions League and they had an absolute collapse in the Premier League. But like that team had Alderweireld and Vertonghen in their pomp when they were an excellent pairing. They had Son, Eriksen and Ali all playing well behind Harry Kane. You look at this Dortmund team and it's not as good as any of those 4. And yet their path to this final has been more convincing than either of the Chelsea years, more convincing than the Spurs run, because obviously Spurs needed that remarkable comeback against Ajax and the remarkable luck against City. It really does sort of line up with that Liverpool team who kind of overcame the odds time and time again to get to the final against Juventus, massive underdogs, against Chelsea, massive underdogs. And you do wonder if maybe there's a potential here for their not an Istanbul, recreation, because if they go 3-0 down to Real, there's just no way Real are losing. but where they go in as massive underdogs against a star-studded team who maybe take them a little bit for granted, and maybe that gives them an edge to play to, where maybe Real just look at them and go, this is comfortable, we're going to beat these quite easily.
Yeah, I can see a little bit of similarities, to be fair, between when we played Tottenham in the final, in how Real Madrid might be looking at this, because obviously when we played Barcelona and then the other semi-final was Ajax Spurs at the time, it really did become about, you have to win that semi because then you've won. Our semi, obviously, whichever one out of ourselves and Barcelona won, were expected to go on and win that final, regardless of who won the other one. And, there's a lot of talk about that was the real final, and, we should just go out and beat Spurs. And that's absolutely true because of league positions and so on at the time. But there would be a danger, let's say, if Liverpool didn't have such a focused squad. Let's say Barcelona beat us on that semi-final. I wouldn't have been surprised to see Spurs or Ajax win the final, because Barcelona never had, or that Barcelona team never had, that level of focus and diligence and absolute refusal to lose, or go from a strong position to losing in the way that Liverpool did. So it would be less likely, I think, for Real Madrid to do that, but also this Dortmund side have proven themselves and have that sort of the mentality in the squad this particular year with this run that they're having, that if they do get ahead in the final, they will be really, really difficult to, even for Real Madrid, to pin back and come from behind and win that game.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you look at, it's funny you mentioned that Barcelona team, because obviously, like, you look back at some of their exits from the European Cup with that kind of team that you're talking about, where they played Atletico Madrid and were heavily favoured to get through and lost in the quarterfinals. The following year, they played Juventus at the same stage, heavily favoured and lost. Then obviously you get the 17-18, they beat Roma comfortably in the quarterfinals, 4-1, but then lose the second leg 3-0 and go out. And then obviously with us the next year, they're 3-0 up and somehow lose 4-0 at Anfield. Like that Barcelona team, who of course the following year got absolutely annihilated by Bayern. Was it 8-2 or something ridiculous? They just destroyed them. It was a one-off game. Absolutely annihilated them. That Barcelona team, they lost their edge and they'd gotten soft. They could still win domestic games, but in the domestic trophies rather, but in the real pressure Champions League games, they fell apart. And like, I agree with you. I think they could have done that in the final against either Ajax or Spurs. With Dortmund, like that's the edge they're going to have to come in hoping that they have, that they're overlooked, that they can play on being the underdog. There's going to be loads and loads of articles in the weeks leading up to this final that write them off, that give them no chance, and that's all motivation for them. Now, I do wonder, as they sat back on Wednesday to watch the other semi-final, which we'll go to now, Bayern were clearly the weaker team in terms of if you were looking at who you would rather play, it would be Bayern because they're weaker than Real Madrid. But at the same time, for Dortmund, do you think they'd have been looking at Bayern and going, that's a domestic game again, like, and that's where we struggle, and that Dortmund team might have a bit of a hold, or that Bayern team might have a bit of a hold over them, even though Bayern themselves have not been good this year? Do you think maybe they were almost rooting for Real Madrid to get through because maybe they felt like they could catch Real cold, whereas Bayern would have a lot more inside knowledge of Dortmund and what they've done this year because they'd have been paying closer attention? Hello there. Have you ever found yourself getting ready to watch the Liverpool match? You've got your mates round, you've got your drinks, you've got your snacks, you're all set to go. It's going to be a good day. And then you find out, oh, the game's not actually being broadcast in your region. There's the heartbreak, There's rage, there's despair, there's fury. You're upset. You're looking for a solution. Well, we've teamed up with NordVPN to bring you a game-changing solution. That's right. With NordVPN, you can switch your virtual location to a country where the game's on live. It's like having a global ticket to sports, TV shows, and movies from all around the world. And here's the best part. If you go to nordvpn.com/Anfield Index, you'll score the best discount on your NordVPN plan. Plus, our link gives you 4 extra months free on the 2-year plan. And that's what we call a winning streak. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, what if it's not for me? What if I don't like it? What if I'm not getting the use of it? Don't worry about it. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's totally risk-free. I've been using NordVPN to catch all the Liverpool matches and TV shows that I'd normally miss out on. It's totally transformed both my weekends and my TV watching. And not only that, not only does it give me access to stuff from all around the world with the click of a button, it keeps all my data safe. It means that the miscreants, the ne'er-do-wells, what my grandmother would have called scallywags, who lurk on the internet to try and steal your information, can't get to your information. NordVPN keeps it safe for you. So don't let geo-restrictions bench you this season. Visit nordvpn.com/Anfield Index and make sure that you're in the game, no matter when or where it's being played. Remember, it's not just sports, it's your all-access pass to binge-worthy TV shows and blockbuster movies from all around the globe. NordVPN literally unlocks the world for you and keeps you safe from the world. So don't miss out. Head over to nordvpn.com/Anfield Index and let the fun and games begin.
Probably. I think overall there might have been a preference to play Bayern Munich for those same reasons, though. I think it would have been both trepidation and look, let's do it this time. There's a little bit of not so much about their final 10 years ago. I'm sure there are plenty of fans who would want to do that. Maybe insiders at the club as well. But generally speaking, I think it would have been about wanting to show that even though they were having a down season, they could still compete, even though they were having a less impressive domestic campaign than they did last year, then they were still able to match Bayern, who themselves are having a down year. I think in a one-off situation, they probably would fancy themselves against Bayern when it really matters, especially because I think they would still be the underdog there. There would still be more pressure on Bayern to actually, Dortmund, if they don't win a title or a trophy in a year, that's kind of par for the course. They expect a challenge, but they don't always expect necessarily to win, because you could come runners up, as they have done previously in multiple competitions to the same club. That's how big and how good Bayern are. But Bayern, if they don't win anything at all, that's a massive failure of a season.
Oh, it's a catastrophe.
And this was their last chance. It would have been the last chance of the final. The pressure would have been exponentially huger.
And they've played, obviously, each other twice this year in the Bundesliga. In the first game, which was back in November in Dortmund, Bayern won 4-0. Upamecano and a Harry Kane hat-trick. But they played again at the end of March at the Allianz Arena in Munich. And Dortmund went in and beat them 2-0. So, Dortmund know that they can beat Bayern this year, and they've beaten them relatively recently. So that might have given them a boost as well. But it will be Real Madrid. Obviously, 2-2 in the first leg. Last night, Real are on top. Real look the more likely team to score. Manuel Neuer is reeling back the years. So this is looking like Manuel Neuer circa 2014. Alphonso Davies puts them 1-up on 68 minutes, puts Bayern 1-up on 68 minutes. Really good goal. Good ball by Kane out to him wide left. Cuts in on the right foot and just, it's gorgeous on his weaker foot to curl that ball in like that and give Lunin, who'd had a really good game himself, absolutely no chance. Fantastic goal. And it looked like they were going to hold out, because Real had the goal disallowed after Nacho put his hands on Joshua Kimmich's face, neck kind of area, and Kimmich went down as if there was a sniper in the stands. And Real were huffing and puffing, but just couldn't find a way past Neuer. And then Vinicius hits probably the weakest shot he'd hit all night, but it takes a weird bounce. It's almost like there was topspin on the ball, and it bounced higher than Neuer thought it was going to bounce, because he puts his hands down. And this is one of the great goalkeepers of all time, whose judgment and fundamentals have always been tremendous. And the ball hops higher than where he has his hands and kind of hits him in the chest, and he spills it. And Stoke legend Joselu, and by legend I mean he failed at Stoke and then at Newcastle, is on hand to tap home. On 91 minutes, Antonio Rudiger finds himself left wing, whips the cross in low, and Joselu scores. It's ruled out, but then the offside turns out to be wrong, and it's given. And then there's 45 minutes of added time played. It's like the 101st minute. Bayern go long. Two Bayern players have made the run into the box. I think is it Mazraoui gets his head, knocks it down, the ball gets played across. The whistle goes because the linesman has raised his flag for offside, and Real stop, and De Ligt puts it in the net. Now, we will never know if the whistle doesn't go, does De Ligt, A, get that shot away, and B, if he does Lunin save it? Because Real stopped. When you look at the replay, De Ligt is offside from the initial ball into the box. We don't get any kind of comprehensive replay or angle on Mazraoui. And I know BN Sport have put up some sort of picture where they've drawn a really crude line where you can't actually see where Mazraoui's feet are. But it's obviously given Bayern, reason to complain that, well, hang on a second, why was the flag raised? And why was the whistle blown? We don't know for certain if the player that got the ball and knocked it back was offside. And if he wasn't, then play should have continued. Even though I suppose there could be an argument that on that ball, because him and De Ligt are quite close together, that maybe they could say De Ligt was interfering with play. What did you make of that?
Shouldn't have been given. As in, shouldn't have been awarded before play stopped. I don't know why there's even any debate about that now. It's been going on for ages. If there's any kind of ball into the box, any kind of stuff like that, they let so much more blatant offences or more blatant offsides or even fouls, to be perfectly honest, which look pretty clear-cut, go until the ball's dead. Why in the last minute of a Champions League semi-final have you not done the same there? It wasn't like he was 8 yards offside or something. It would have been either his half a boot was or half a boot wasn't.
Yeah.
It was pretty close. Like, there was no reason for it.
Yeah, it's razor tight, like. But again, and the worst part is, like, Bayern will say, well, we were robbed, and Real will say, well, hang on a second, we stopped playing. So we would have gotten a block in, or Lunin would have saved it, because it's not like De Ligt smashed it into the top corner. It's not a particularly well-struck shot. Lunin would have had a good chance to save it if he'd made an effort. And I almost wish he had just dived and either saved it or not saved it. So at least then we'd either have a legitimate gripe, which it's a legitimate gripe anyway, or we just know, well, it didn't matter anyway because the goalkeeper saved it.
Yeah, the knowing one way or another would definitely have been more preferable. I think that Tuchel and Bayern have absolutely every right to be raging at it, to be perfectly honest. Like, I don't really know that there's anything that can be done to recompense it, even in the moment, but it's just a really obnoxious thing to do in the last minute, to be honest. Like it sounds a bit harsh on the official, but because he was probably like, I expect that maybe he was right because he was so concentrated at that minute in getting the decision that he signalled the decision, like forgetting that that's the part he should just wait on just for a minute.
Yeah.
But maybe because it was so tight, because it was such a key moment, because it was such an important thing to get right, that's more what he was focused on. That's what I'd like to think anyway.
There's also a possibility that it slipped his mind that he wasn't meant to put his flag up until the ball had gone dead, because of the sheer amount of focus and energy that the officials as well as the players had expended in that game. Because I thought the officials, to their credit, got pretty much everything right on the night. And like, you know yourself, like mental fatigue is worse than physical fatigue in a lot of ways. And it can just cause you to have those those lapses. And maybe it's just a reflex thing where he's gone, oh, that's offside, and put his flag up. And it has skipped his mind that you're not meant to do that. Like we won't know. He's not going to give any kind of statement. The one thing I will say, though, is once Real equalised, hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own two-footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin De Vries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bayern were going to be in trouble because they'd taken off Kane, they'd taken off Musiala, they'd taken off Leroy Sané. Like, Thomas Tuchel had parked the bus as the game wound down, trying to see it out, bringing on Kim, going to a more defensive shape. Whereas with Real, you felt like if it went to extra time, Real were going to win it. And if it went to penalties, Bayern have taken 2 of their best penalty takers off already. Like, no Kane, no Musiala. Who's going to be taking these penalties? So, like, Tuchel, he definitely has a right to be annoyed, but I do think he played his hand wrong in the last sort of 15 minutes of that game and was willing to soak up too much pressure. Whereas it might have been better if he kept Kane on. I know he brought on Choupo-Moting, but I mean, nobody's worried about him. It is a crazy thing. Can we just acknowledge that in a Champions League semi-final, Real Madrid are playing Barcelona, and the strikers that these clubs are bringing on have both played for Stoke. And neither of them were any good there.
Yes, that's an absolute nonsense.
It's bizarre.
I don't even want to think about it. To be fair, to be slightly fair, I suppose, Tuchel did say that Kane had done his back in and he couldn't carry on. In which case,
I missed that. Okay, well, that's fair then. That is
so he
fair.
he said it post-match because obviously there was lots of people saying the exact same thing as you have. So yeah, he said there was basically no prospective way that he could have continued because his back was just done in, and he had to go off. So I think it was maybe 1 or 2 changes too many though, because even if you have to change your forward, you have to change Kane, whatever, but taking off Musiala as well, he looked like he was obviously struggling a little bit with cramp. I just think that there was too many basically, and they didn't have the depth on the bench that Real did for first 11 players. Like, even if Joselu is not considered as a starter or as anywhere near as good as the starters, the others they brought on were like Camavinga and Modric coming on, Militao coming on. Obviously, they had Courtois should they have needed him to come on. Lucas Vasquez plays a lot of games from the start still, so you know they had far better players, I think, in general. Thomas Muller's a big name, but not a good player anymore, if we're being brutally honest. Same for Leon Goretzka by a lot of this season. So it was really only Alphonso Davies who himself has lost his place, and Kim Min-jae who has also lost his place. Yeah,
both of them have had rough seasons. We should just take a moment, though, to acknowledge just how incredible Real Madrid are in this competition.
Sickening.
This will be final number 18 for them. No other team has been in more than 11. Milan have been in 11 and Bayern have been in 11. This is 18 for them. Of those 18, they've won, of the 17 they've had so far, they've won 14 of them. They have not lost a final since 1981. This will be the 9th final since then. We're old enough to remember in the 90s, the early 90s, when Laudrup and Hierro and Manolo and Redondo were part of that team, and a young Raul, and Capello went there and they signed Mijatovic and Suker and Seedorf and Carlos and all of them. And there was all this talk about Real Madrid and how they hadn't won the European Cup since 1966. And they finally won it in 98. They've won 8 from 1988 to now, not including the final come up. They've won 8. So in that period of time, which is 25 years, 26 years now, but 25 years to the end of last year, they've won more than anyone else in history, just in that period. If you take out the 5 in a row and the 1966 one, they're still the most successful team in this competition. If you look at the fact that of this current group, Dani Carvajal, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, and Nacho are all in line to win their 6th European Cup. Only one other person in history has done that. That's Paco Gento. He did that obviously back in that incredible team in the 50s and 60s with Di Stefano and Puskas and people like that. Like 34 players have won 4 or more European Cups. 34. Only 7 have managed it without winning at least one with Real. That's obscene. 19 players have won 5 or more. Only Maldini and Costa Curta didn't win at least one with Real. Like, their dominance is just insane. If they win it this year, that's 15. All of the English clubs have won 15 between them. Every other country has won less. They by themselves outstrip every other country, bar England, and can match England this year. And like, think about our incredible history in this competition with 6. United have won 3, Chelsea and Forest 2 each, City and Villa 1 each, and Real have won as potentially can win as many on their own as all of those clubs combined. That is obscene dominance of this competition. Like, they're double any other club as things stand. They have more than any 2 clubs as things stand. And they will go into this final as prohibitive favourites to win it again.
Yeah, it's on a scale which is very difficult to comprehend because, like you said, they have in the life cycle or lifetime of most supporters now watching the Champions League era, they have been the dominant team throughout that period. Like, it's really difficult to comprehend anything else other than Real Madrid being one of the favourites almost every single year, almost without exception. Like, you have to be a seriously senior football watcher, let's say, to remember a period where Real Madrid did not do well.
Yeah. Like, if they win it this year, that will be their 6th title in 11 years. Like, number 2 on the list is Milan, who haven't won it since 2007, and Real can potentially win their 6th since Milan. Like, when Milan last won the title, it was a close run thing. They had 7, and Real had 9. And if you were to put your money down, you would have said, you know, Milan won't catch Real, but they'll stay within 3 or 4 because they'll win again themselves. Now, part of that is Milan have obviously fallen off. The financial collapse really, really hurt Italian football. Italian football have been obviously waning because of the Calciopoli thing anyway. But, like, my God, it's absolute. It's incredible what they've been able to do. Like, I remember when Ajax won it in 95 and They hadn't won it since the 70s.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
Sports Social Podcast Network.